Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Faster Way podcast. I am thrilled to be here today for a very interesting conversation with Clint Ober, who is a pioneer in the grounding, or as he calls it, earthing category. And as many of you know, I recently purchased a home in Costa Rica, and I have been dabbling in this whole concept, this strategy of grounding as part of my daily routine. So, Clint, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me on.
Clint, I am going to ask you some questions that are very, very simple, very elementary, because admittedly, I am a newbie when it comes to grounding. And it's even funny because I grew up Southern Baptist, and there was an aversion to anything that seemed New Age. And I'm doing some air quotes here because even recently, when I posted some videos and photos of enjoying the sunrise at my home in Costa Rica and doing some grounding exercises, I did have a couple of comments from the peanut gallery. Interesting, Amanda, you moved to Costa Rica and now you're New Age. And I said, this doesn't feel New Age. This feels based in science. This feels based in enjoying creation. And it was just kind of a funny comment, but go very elementary and foundational for us, Clint. What is grounding? Can you define it at its simplest terms for us?
Yes. It starts with the sun. The sun is radiating, photons and electrons from the sun. Then they come through space. There's no heat in space. So the sun is not radiating heat. It's radiating electrons, photons, and the like. As it hits the earth, then the earth absorbs these photons and electrons, and it builds a very subtle negative surface charge on the earth. The word negative means no charge, but the earth is energized with sunlight, electrical energy. And everything electrical in the world is connected to the earth in order to maintain electrical stability, because the whole planet itself has an electrical, it has an electrical surface charge. This charge is, to a lot of people, it's called a sink because it can absorb charge, meaning like an electrical charge, like static electricity or any kind of charge, or it can give up electrons to reduce charge, like in a body or something like that. But so grounding is very simple. Earthing is the correct word because you're talking about driving a rod in the earth. That's called an earthing rod. Grounding is kind of an American slang term, but so it doesn't matter. They're used interchangeably. But earthing is, so you stick something in the earth, you're going to earth it. You're like potatoes. You earth them in, and then cover them up and they grow. So grounding is that's the simplest thing. There's other kind of grounding, mental grounding, meaning to get grounded so you can go into state, like with yoga or various other types of meditations or whatever people do. So grounding is getting back to center, or in this case, returning to normal. And throughout all time, humans were naturally grounded because they were barefoot on the earth. It was only in 1960 that we invented the plastics and made our rubber sole shoes, tennis shoes. And at that point, as we started wearing those rubber sole shoes, then autoimmune disease began to manifest. And so the work I've done for the last 25 years is to validate that you can't have inflammation in a grounded body, whether it's a amplifier or an electrical device, your computer, or a human being, because a human being is the most conductive thing on planet Earth. Every single cell, your heart, your brain, your nerves, everything is electrical first. And you need electrical stability. You need to be connected to a large object, which is the earth, which you always have been. And that maintains the electrical stability of the body. Where if you are not grounded, and for the last 60 years or so, most of us have not been grounded, then what happens is the immune system is lost its ability to reduce remaining radicals after an oxidative burst, and that's really the underlying cause of inflammation. And so all the research that I've done is we ground people to the earth and reduce inflammation,
Wow.
monitor it, measure it, do whatever. So it's about nature. Grounding is about reconnecting with the surface of the earth in order to maintain the electrical stability of the immune system.
Mm.
And just a little context, animals in the wild is rarely, if ever, manifest cancer, cardiovascular disease, autism, lupus, MS. These are all inflammation-related health issues. But on the other hand, domesticated animals who live indoors with their owners, 50% of them will lose their life to cancer, just like their owners. So this is an environmental. Grounding is about not what meds to take, what to exit, what to do. It's really about we lost our ground. We lost our electrical
Wow.
ground. It was there all the time. Nobody knew about it. But as soon as we put the shoes on, then we insulated ourselves and no longer conduct this. And so now the immune system is adrift, and many people manifest inflammation, which is kind of related to what you're
Absolutely.
doing.
Okay, we have to dive into a few of the phrases that you shared. The first one is
Okay.
a grounded individual cannot be an inflamed individual. Is that the phrase you used? It was very similar to that. Repeat the phrase back to me.
Okay. You can't have inflammation in a grounded object or a grounded body.
You can't have...
Or a grounded dog, or a grounded deer, or a grounded animal that lives outdoors in the wild. Or a plant that's connected. Anything connected to the earth, you can't have inflammation, because the earth is negative and it contributes on demand free electrons that automatically reduce and prevent oxidation.
Got it. So you cannot have inflammation in a grounded object. And for my community listening, they are very familiar that in the faster way, we are always looking to prevent and address inflammation. One of the reasons that we do intermittent fasting, one of the reasons that we tend to be a gluten-free, dairy-free lifestyle, one of the reasons that we don't eat processed foods is to prevent and address inflammation. And so many of our diseases come down to actually inflammation, which people don't realize. There are so many different opinions about why cancer, why this, why autoimmune, why this, where in fact, much of it is due to inflammation. And it's interesting, Clint, because you discussed two different types of grounding or earthing. One, which is the benefit to the body, and the other, which is the mind connection to the body. So it's almost that scientific earth to body connection, and then also the mind to body connection. And people do talk about centering or grounding, which is great, because when I am earthing, when I am putting my feet on the beautiful grass or the dirt in Costa Rica, and I could literally feel it now as we're talking about it. I love the feeling. I'm also simultaneously taking that time to do some breath work. I'm taking that time to pray, to meditate. So I'm actually, it's kind of two bangs for your buck, when I'm doing that. So I hadn't thought of it like that, where it's the earth to body connection and it's the mind to body connection simultaneously, both which can be referred to as grounding, but in different ways. So the fact that a grounded object cannot be an inflamed object, I think that is absolutely key, and that is huge. And then you're discussing kind of this energy component. But before we even dive more into the details of that, how did you come upon this, Clint? Like, I got to know how, why, when did you come upon this?
Well, I spent 30 years in the communications industry. Before that, I grew up as a cowboy on a ranch in Montana. I'm always inquisitive, and I always ask questions. But one day, I was one of the original pioneers and part of the cable industry, and when we started building out the cable systems, we had wire in the air, aerial wires, and like telephone and power and so on. And if you don't ground them to the earth, if there's any static in the air, in the electric, in the atmosphere, or if there's lightning or any kind of an electrical event, electrical noise of any kind, if you don't ground it to the earth, then that noise will It can travel down a line, go inside a home and blow up a TV set or a device, or it can start a fire, mainly start a fire. And so you have to prevent that. So we learned early on in developing that industry that we had to ground everything to the earth in order to prevent fire in the home or to prevent electrical disturbances or cross mod or any kind of, all kinds of poor pictures, let's put it, poor sound,
Yeah.
poor data,
Yeah.
corrupted data, and so on. Yes.
So you went from this industry where you were a pioneer to, seeing and experiencing and implementing this grounding to then thinking, let
Right.
me put my feet on the ground. I mean, how did you transition to that?
No. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry I passed that over. Basically, I retired when I was 50
Mhm.
years old. And I had, I was living in Arizona, and one day a tour bus pulled up. And I was a cowboy, so I've always worn leather sole shoes, which are semi-conductive because they sweat and the body salts hydrate and make them conductive. Or I was barefoot because when I was young, the last thing you would ever do is put on a pair of shoes unless you had to go
Mhm.
to school or church or some event. And that was back in the 40s. And television came along in the early 50s. So anyhow, one day I was just standing there and a tour bus pulled up. And about, a group of people started loading off the tour group. And I just, for some reason, noticed that they all had big white Nike tennis shoes on. And I thought, well, they'd just been to a strip mall and they were on sale because it's appeared that they all had the same color and so on. And I didn't really know, but I was just sitting there. And so intuitively, I don't know where it came from. I wasn't looking for it, but I asked a question. I wonder if wearing rubber soled shoes can it affect the
Wow.
body, can have an effect on our health. I had no idea, but I didn't have anything else to do. So I went home that night and I drug out some electrical meters and so on that I had, and I connected and grounded them to the earth. And then I started walking around my home. And then all of a sudden I realized that when I had these shoes on, or when I was indoors, then all of the static electricity, from sitting on a couch to just if you have a rubber sole shoe on, just picking your foot up off the floor will create lots of static charge on your body. You don't see it. You only feel it when it gets up to 3,000 or 4,000 volts and you touch a doorknob or something. But anyhow, so I measured all of that and I said, oh my goodness, because in nature, this doesn't exist. You have no inflammation, no electrical influences on the body. Because when you're grounded to the earth, you are electrically the same as the earth, and you are electrically as big as the earth, which is infinitely large. When you are disconnected from the earth, then all of a sudden you're an antenna
Mm.
and you attract the static charges and things like that. So I didn't really know. I thought, wow, this is really interesting. And I didn't really know anything about it myself. But anyhow, that night, I went to the hardware store and I bought a roll of 3-inch wide metal duct tape, like you would put on furnace, aluminum type duct tape. And I just laid it across my bed and I connected it to a ground wire and threw it out the window. And I was just playing. I wasn't looking for anything. I was playing because it was so fascinating. When I ground myself, all the electrical charges disappear. But as soon as I disconnect, then my body becomes an antenna for EMF, static electricity, and noise in the environment. And then my background in grounding, it just came second nature to me. Well, how come I didn't know about this? Nobody ever
Yeah.
told me about the grounding the body? And I didn't think too much about it, but I was 50 years old. At that time, I was 54. And I had I had more pain because I grew up on a ranch and I played tennis. I skied for 30 years. Any possible, whatever you can tear up or break or whatever I had. So anyhow, at 54 years old, I was in chronic pain. I remember one day going outdoors in the backyard, looking up at the sky and I said, God, why did you make my body with so much
Mm.
pain in it? Because it was brutal.
Wow.
And I learned later it had nothing to do with it. It was all me. but anyhow, so this came all intuitively. I don't know
Mhm.
where it came from. So I lay down on the grounded tape on my bed had a voltmeter, and it was also connected to the earth. And so when I would touch that, then the voltmeter would go to zero as soon as I lay down. As soon as I get up, all the charges come back. And then all of a sudden I woke up in the morning and the voltmeter's laying down by my side. And I said, holy cow, there's something going on here, because normally I have to take Advil or pain meds to go to sleep, or I have to leave the TV on until I can't keep my eyes open, because I was in chronic pain. So that's how it started. So then I ended up telling one of my neighbor guys about it, because he had a lot of health issues. And I said, you need to try this, because it'll help you sleep better. And so I went over and did the same thing on his bed and another guy's bed at the same time. And so they could understand what we were doing and they could lay on it. They were grounded. A couple of days later, one of the guys comes over and he says, do you think this could have anything to do with my arthritis? And I said, no, I don't think so. I think it's just going to help you sleep better. And he said, but my arthritis is disappearing or coming down.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden I recognized all of my chronic pain. It started to diminish. Okay. And so then I've been on this journey for 25 years. I've put over $20 million in research and science and trying to answer a simple question about being barefoot versus wearing shoes. But anyhow, so that's kind of how it got started. And then I started out going out, the universities here and there, and down to UCLA. They kind of laughed me off campus and said, if you expect us to believe somebody's going to stick a nail in the ground, tie it around somebody's toe, and they're going to sleep better. I said, they said, you're nuts. But they didn't understand electrical. And I certainly didn't understand biological at that time. Now I probably know as much as anybody. But anyhow, so I've spent the last 25 years and producing studies. These are proof of concept studies. The clinical studies belong in the medical world. I don't want to be involved in the medical world. It's not my place. My place is doing what I do. So what we've done is we've done all these pilot studies, and we verified one thing. You can't have inflammation when you're grounded if you stay grounded. At the minute you get grounded, the inflammation, the dysfunction of the immune system will cease and stop producing the fire from the radicals, the remaining radicals. Then the immune system has to go to work and repair the damage that has been done over the years of being ungrounded. And so the pain, the hot burning pain will stop immediately. That way you're grounded. But the other healing pain and some of those subtle things that go on, you have normal healing, and normal healing, that's nature. But the oxidation, you have to stop it in order for the body to heal. This is intuitive. This came through me, not from me.
Which is incredible. And I'm sold. So I am sold because when I do grounding in Costa Rica, I feel better. Okay. And one of the big reasons for everyone listening, and if you've been a longtime Fast Away client or community member, you guys are familiar. I started traveling to Costa Rica. I felt night and day better in Costa Rica versus Florida. My allergies would go away. My immune system would be functioning optimally. I wasn't getting sick constantly. Where in Florida, I have 5 kids, so I'm kind of running a daycare, and one of the kids is always bringing home a different virus, but also, my schedule in Florida, it's very, very packed. I'm waking up, putting my tennis shoes on first thing in the morning, heading to the office, filming workouts, going to and from. I don't spend the time in Florida to go outside, do my breath work. In Costa Rica, and I just, as you're talking, I'm like, oh my, I just can't wait to get back to my house in Costa Rica. I'm moving 3 of my 5 kids there on Sunday and moving my husband there for the next 3 months. But there's a reason that I feel so much better. And it might not just be the fact that the food is better and the air is pure. It's probably because I am every single day for many hours of the day, barefoot on the grass, barefoot on the dirt, barefoot in the sand, I sleep better. I tell people, and I just had 10 of my Faster Way certified coaches there last week. I was hosting them at my home there. And I tell people, and they agreed. I say, I need 1 to 2 hours less of sleep in Costa Rica versus Florida.
Yes.
And we all 12, 13 of us, we'd wake up at 5. We would watch the sunrise. We would do some breath work, do some grounding. And then we were going hard all day long, but we were out in the boat. We were on the beach. We were still working, but outside we were going till 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night. But then
Yes.
we're sleeping.
Yeah.
We
You
have more, but then
energy.
we're sleeping less hours and we wake up, pop up the next morning. And the girls are going, I don't understand. I need so much less sleep. My sleep is deeper. But as you're talking, I'm thinking about my life in Florida because I can't always be in Costa Rica. I have my company here in Florida. So what do I do? What do my listeners do? What do my clients do in order to kind of bring Costa Rica to ourselves, to bring this grounding, earthing to ourselves? I got clients up in the Midwest, Clint. It's 50 degrees, 40 degrees, negative 20 degrees up there.
Oh,
What do you do?
yeah. Well, let me tell you shortly here. When we started doing this study 25 years ago, we had to bring in subjects, and then I had to make shift grounding products, or not products, but what I call a ground plane, something they could sit on, stand on, sleep on, and be grounded. And then we would do the biofeedback or do the blood draws, do whatever you needed, whatever the scientists were to do. So anyhow, as we started, then all the subjects who were not placebo, who were grounded, actually grounded, they all wanted to take the mats home that I had made up. Okay, and that was no problem because we couldn't use them on other subjects anyway. And then so we see that, and we saw that it kept happening. And then all of a sudden, these earlier subjects would come back and they would want a second one for their mom.
Yeah.
I need one for my mom. Or it was a mother saying, I need one for my daughter. Or somebody, I need one for grandma. But it was all women primarily that wanted this mat that we're making up as a test. It was a ground plane. It was something that it was connected to the earth. So it conducted Earth's energy. And so when you stood on it or laid on it, then your body was grounded like the earth, like laying outdoors in the grass without the bugs. So anyhow, that's how it started. And this business was that accidental business. One of my claims to fame is I was the first person to really promote and to build the cable modem. So you have all the channels and all that kind of stuff. I was one of the first people to ever put data over a satellite, feed it to personal computers, went around the world, collected data from every wire service. So my background is a whole different universe. And here I am, trying to build these little pads for women so they can take some of our scraps and go around their mother. And so anyhow, but this was an accidental business. We still don't really know how to market, but to give you an idea, on TikTok, in November, there was 690 million searches for earthing and grounding on TikTok. That's twice as many people as live in the United States. So it's an organic thing. Our customers are 99% female. Guys would say, like me, they were just like me. Well, if this were true, I would have known about this. Somebody would have told me about this. But anyhow, because it works and because it reduces pain quickly, the women want it and they want to share it. They don't want the explanation. They don't care about the explanation. Yeah. It works. But bottom line is it's nature. So all we're trying to do is replicate you standing on the earth, taking, and so on. So, but to get better familiar with it so that you understand your listeners, the best thing to do is just go outdoors, get a chair where there's some shade, take your shoes off, sit down, put your feet on the earth in the grass if you can, stay there for 30 minutes. Your respiration is going to change. You're going to feel a discharge. You're going to feel an energetic, like all the static is going to discharge from your body. Your respiration is going to improve. Your O2 saturation is going to increase by 1 to 3 points. And then your blood viscosity is going to normalize the thickness of your blood. It can get in and out of the capillaries, oxygenate the tissue, reduce the inflammation, the fire of
Wow.
inflammation. And so it's all
Mm.
nature. You can't do too much of it. You can't do too little, but you can't do too much of it because in before modern times, we were grounded 24/7, couldn't get out
Mm-hmm.
of the dirt. But we had no inflammation related health disorders. We had diseases, malfunction. I mean, just, you know, uh, malnutrition, wars and all those things, but we didn't have chronic inflammation.
Mm.
We didn't have autism, lupus, MS, and diabetes. We didn't have these kind of health disorders. So these are all related to the immune system dysfunctioning. So all we're trying to do is connect the human body to the earth so it can absorb free electrons. The electrons come up the map, up the wire, however, and then if you lay on it, put skin against it, then you're going to absorb those electrons and you're going to return to the same electrical, I hate these words, potential as the earth. You're going to be equal with the earth. You're going to have the same amount of electrons per square inch that the earth does. You cannot have inflammation in a grounded body. Now, problem is you have to stay grounded if you don't want any inflammation ever. That's almost impossible in our
Right.
modern time. We are working on some things that can help with that. But in the meantime, sleep is the most important time you can be grounded because that's when the body heals and restores itself. But I want to share one other real thing. You know, I hope I
You
have time
absolutely
here.
do. Yes.
But I want to share one thing because I've grounded more women with autoimmune disease than any other person. I mean, that's who I work with. And most of these women, I remember one time had one of my first subjects that had MS, and I was grounding her, and I asked her accidentally, I said, "What caused this to manifest? When did this show up?" Because she was like in her 40s, and she says, "I don't know. It was just a couple of years ago. I just started getting sick, and I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker." And I said, "Well, she thought maybe she inherited it or something." But then all of a sudden, she mentioned that her son had died 3 years before, and she went and so then, over a period of time, I started asking every woman that I grounded. I said, with their permission, can you tell me what happened in your life prior to grounding? I mean, prior to inflammation manifesting or this named inflammation related health disorder. And every one of them had a story of loss. It could have been a personal relationship. It could have been a child. It could have been a family member. It could have been loss of a job. If a lot of people, loss of a house, just something happened that broke their bubble. Then they went into a chronically elevated sympathetic state, meaning they were intense, whatever. And then, so the body was filled with cortisol. And then they become very sensitive. And then any little thing could set them off or whatever. And then more cortisol. And then all of a sudden, irritability, anxiety, oftentimes depression. And then it goes on and on to the chronic inflammation-related health disorders, all the way to one of the big groups that I've worked with for years is breast cancer and so on. But so these are all the same disease. That's what Ritger and the boys back in Boston, Mass. In 2004, they said, you don't have all these diseases. What you have is chronic inflammation. Your immune system is not functioning properly. And then based on your lifestyle and environment, different diseases are going to manifest differently in different people, but they all start with the same underlying cause. And that means the immune system is not shutting down after an oxidative burst. And so, but I'm trying to say two things here at one time. It's kind of tough. But anyhow, so the oxidative burst is simple. You have a pathogen in the body. The immune system sends a neutrophil over. The neutrophil encapsulates the pathogen and releases reactive oxygen species. Reactive means it's electrically charged. And that's how the immune system destroys pathogens. So then, that's normal. That's 100% normal. But the body was always grounded to the earth before all animals, just in nature from the beginning of time. And we always had this protection. Our body was always flooded with free electron. So if there was any remaining radical, it would automatically have been neutralized within 2 or 3 nanoseconds. So today we've lost our ground. So we're electron deficient. And now these radicals can reach over. I mean, they're going to neutralize themselves in a few nanoseconds. So once the pathogen's gone, any remaining radicals will then steal an electron from a healthy cell. That's the spark of inflammation. Then sends a message to the immune system. The immune system sends another neutrophil to clean up that mess. Then it's a chain reaction. Then all of a sudden it builds and it builds. And then you have a storm that turns into oxidative inflammation. Right. And it goes on and manifests all these health disorders. But the point I was getting at with the other story is I used to live on, a ranch in Montana, and every summer, some summers there's no rabbits at all, but some summers the grass had been good the year before and whatever. And so the rabbits would be all over the place and the pastime was watching coyotes chase rabbits. Here's a rabbit out there eating grass like nothing ever happened. And here's a coyote over here sneaking up on the rabbit because that's his lunch. And so all of a sudden the rabbit senses the coyote, the ears perk up and he can jump like 10 feet in the air, these jack skin. And then the coyote so the rabbit would zigzag back and forth and the coyote would just chase him like, going like a dog going after him. 99% of the time the coyote ran out of energy. He just didn't have enough energy. Okay, the rabbit, the rabbit would go just a little bit further, keep one eye on the coyote, but he would just sit there and you could see him quiver because his life had just been threatened. Then all of a sudden the coyote would get up, wander off the other way. The rabbit would all of a sudden have a visceral shake like that. Then it would go back to eating like nothing ever happened. Nothing had ever happened. And I tell this story to women primarily because grounding for sure is going to put the fire out. You go out and put your feet on the earth for 30 seconds, you're going to look 10 years younger because of the visceral change from, losing the stress, but mainly the, improved circulation and oxygenation. Your color comes up, your energy comes up, and you described it yourself in Costa Rica. So anyhow, but the reason I tell that story is because as a woman, your life is full of coyotes. You have 5 children. That's 5 coyotes. You have a husband. That's a coyote. You have the mailbox. You have the internet. You have all these people that you're involved with. They're all coyotes because they all are coming at you.
Yes.
But anyhow, so anytime there's an event with another person or whatever, like getting the kids off on time or whatever, then there's a little bit of cortisol. And this goes on all day long. You may drive to work. You may do this, whatever. But the coyote, the rabbit, it grounded it out. It absorbed the free electrons from the earth and reduced the inflammation that was created from the chase. Then it could go back to life as normal. No therapy, nothing. Just
no therapy, nothing. I love it. I love it.
So anyhow, so grounding is about really it's, do whatever you have to do to come to terms with what it is and that it improves your health, affects your health. If you have chronic pain, if you have menstrual cramps, I don't care what it is. These are all inflammation-related health. They do not happen in nature.
Yeah.
So what we're suffering from is environmental health disorder, meaning we've changed our environment. We've lost our ground. And as a result, our bodies are, and then we have the mental stuff that goes on and we don't ground out the cortisol. And so it manifests in many different ways. And then a lot of, I don't want to touch your expertise, but because I ground so many women, I know, but the weight issues oftentimes are related to this chronic buildup of inflammation.
Clint, I'm looking at your shop right now, and I heard you say in a few different instances that grounding really helps sleep, and grounding during sleep is extremely important. But I don't know what that means because I'm not sleeping on the ground or the floor, but I'm looking. Can you explain to me in your shop? So I see the Earthing Elite mattress cover kit, the Earthing Elite sleep mat kit. If money is no object, what is the real key? What is the ideal? How do we even do? I don't even understand how I could do grounding while I'm sleeping unless I'm somehow connected to the dirt.
Oh, okay. Well, there's one product there that's called a Unimat or a universal
Mm-hmm.
earthing mat. It's just 12 inches, 13 inches wide, and maybe 30
Mm-hmm.
inches long. You can put it under your computer and under your keyboard. You can put it on the floor, put your feet on it. You can put it in a chair and sit on it, or you can lay it in bed and on your
Mm-hmm.
bed and sleep on it and just lay on it and sleep on it. As long as it's connected to the ground, then you are connected to
So
the earth.
is there a way, if I
So,
am on the third story of my house in Florida, for me to even be connected to the ground, or there's really no way?
yes, no, the electrical, anything that's probably, is it a wood frame home or is it a
We are
concrete
concrete on
brick?
the bottom and then wood. I think a little bit of wood on the top in Florida.
Okay. So as long as there's, yeah, because in Florida, there's good fire code and good codes. So, what you have to do is the electrical outlet has two slots and a little round hole. The little round hole is connected to a wire that goes to the ground, to the earth.
Oh,
It's called an earthing port or a ground port.
interesting.
So every home has them. And so, yeah, these products, they're there. We sell millions of them
Yeah.
around the world. And it's word of
Mm-hmm.
mouth. And more outside of the United States than inside the United States, which is interesting. And but it's people don't have a lot of options in other countries and so on. But anyhow, so these products, you kind of have to go there and peruse them. But start out by going outdoors, sitting on a chair underneath some shade, and then look at your face in the mirror before you go out, and then look in the mirror 30 minutes later. You will look 10 years younger because your circulation improves, the wrinkles kind of disappear a little bit, the color comes up, but most of all, the demeanor changes. Pain, because it's about pain. You sleep better because if you're grounded during sleep, then it reduces all the pain in your body and you can sleep.
Yeah. Okay.
Where if you have pain.
Sorry to cut you off. I was just getting excited and I'm looking at your website and I'm going to get one of these earthing sleep mat kits because I think that'll be great for my house, especially in Florida, since I don't have as many grounding opportunities. Clint, we are going to wrap up just due to time, but this has been so interesting. And I know that my ladies are appreciative of the insight and the science behind grounding because I've been talking about it. Lee, our pro trainer, has been talking about it. You guys have seen me do this on Instagram in Costa Rica. But Clint, where can we find you online? What's the best place to find you and see more about what you're up to?
Well, first of all, the earthinginstitute.net, earthinginstitute.net is where it's a repository for all of the research, all of the articles, everything. You have the earthing movie, all of those things, which are award-winning. And then you have the earthing book, which is sold 1.5 million in English. I don't know how many now, the 23 other languages. So it's an organic type thing. It's about the earth. It's about nature. And so online, I have a Facebook. I answer questions. Anybody can reach me via any of the modern social medias. I eventually answer all my questions. And sometimes they're a month late, but that's all right. Yeah, and earthing.com is the company that has the products. In fact, they even have a special now where you can get like a pair of those Birkenstock type, they're grounded flip-flops, or not flip-flops, the slides, the Birkenstock slides. And you get them free when you order any product from Earthing right now, I think, anyway. And but anyhow, we're more about education, information and education. Can't sell these products. What you have to do is educate people and motivate them enough that they'll take their shoes off and go outdoors. And if they say, oh my gosh, why didn't somebody tell me about this? then they can figure out how they want to ground themselves, what their
Yeah.
financial situation is, or what they need to do
Mm.
to change their
Hmm.
environment so they can reconnect with the powers
Yeah,
that be.
yeah. Well, Clint, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your time today, but I appreciate and want to acknowledge you for what you've done in the world and the hard work that you have put in to educate the masses, and even your humility about, the accomplishments. So, I just, again, I'm grateful for the time. We are better off for it. I cannot wait to go outside and put my feet in the grass today.
Well, you've already been doing it. So
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for
Well, thanks
listening.
for you bet. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Bye.